Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Shara Goff, the Director of Public Information for Montgomery County Police. And here today is Chief Marcus Jones, John McCarthy, Montgomery County State's Attorney, Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone, Assistant Chief Mark Yamada, Acting Assistant Chief Amy Dahm, and Lieutenant Dave Cohen from the 5th District in Germantown. Chief Jones will address the significant arrests made in the 5th District in Germantown and the impact that these arrests may have on decreasing the violent crimes in the Crystal Rock area. He will also discuss the attempted murder charges of 3 suspects involved in a residential burglary call early this morning. Immediately following this news conference, Assistant Chief Willie Parker Lone is available to talk with anyone regarding the police response during the 4th of July holiday. Here's Chief Marcus Jones.
Thank you, Shara. Good afternoon. As many of you are aware, I have been vocal over the past few weeks about the increase of violence that has been occurring in Montgomery County and all throughout the county, and then particularly as it pertained to the Germantown community, where we had significant concerns about gun violence. And so I want to speak about an arrest that we made on last Thursday that we believe is significant to the violence that's been occurring in the Germantown community, and be more precise, the Crystal Rock Drive, also known as the Hampton Apartments, where we've had several incidents of violence over the past year. So during the month of May, 5th District officers received numerous complaints about criminal activity that was occurring in the 19700 block of Crystal Rock Drive. And these complaints were primarily coming from an apartment, and they were pertaining to drug dealing in that particular area. Over the next several weeks, the 5th District officers, assisted by members of the Special Investigations Division, conducted surveillance and other investigative efforts in an attempt to identify the individuals involved in response to that community complaint. Efforts confirmed that drug dealing was happening in this location. So on June 16th, patrol officers from the 5th District were waved down by a citizen who lives in the same apartment complex and near that particular residence, reporting the sounds of shots being fired. Officers responded immediately and located 38 rounds of spent casings and live rounds of ammunition at the back corner of that particular block, to include a combination of 5.7 caliber rounds, 45 caliber rounds, and 9mm rounds. Again, this was in close proximity to the residence, which I have noted being on Crystal Rock Drive. While conducting surveillance again, numerous individuals were identified as validated gang members who were seen coming and going from this particular residence. These individuals all have been identified were between the ages of 18 and 21 years of age. Most have criminal histories, to include firearms possession and robbery. So in the late evening of hours of June 22nd, our SWAT team served a signed no-knock search warrant at this location. This warrant was applied for and granted because of the propensity of violence of those who frequent this location, as well as intelligence that firearms were present at the apartment. On that particular night, the SWAT team served the warrant. 7 individuals were arrested. 1 additional suspect was arrested during a traffic stop as he left the residence. 6 of the 7 are validated gang members, and the gang is called the Black Mob. A total of 5 firearms were recovered, including 2 that were modified into fully automatic handguns. over 80 fentanyl pills disguised as counterfeit prescription pills. They were also located to include a large amount of U.S. currency. And as you all know, the county has seen a rise in fatal overdoses pertaining to fentanyl, especially amongst young people without a history of addiction that are tied to these counterfeit pills. Many of those pills are sold by increasingly sophisticated organizations comprised of younger offenders, many of whom, unfortunately, are under the age of 21. It is believed that some of these individuals involved are also involved in other criminal activity in the Germantown area. We are extensively investigating and looking at potential ties to other criminal acts that have occurred in Germantown, particularly violent acts that these individuals may well be tied to. That is primarily what I wanted to speak about in response to the Germantown incident. Now I want to talk about a little bit about this morning, and then I'll have Mr. McCarthy come up to also speak about both of these incidents. So as you all may already know, that this morning we responded to our second district second district officers, I should say. Officers responded to a residential burglary call. Over the past month or so, we have had a burglary trend, residential burglary trend, in the second district in the Bethesda area. So therefore, we have been putting resources into that area, knowing that we've had this particular burglary trend occurring during the late night hours. At approximately 1:20 a.m. this morning, our special assignment team assigned to the second district responded to an attempted burglary in progress in the 6,000 block of Johnson Avenue. Our 2D SAT officers observed a silver BMW leaving the area at a high rate of speed, and the officers followed that SUV. As the officers were following the suspect vehicle, the driver of the SUV came to an abrupt stop, causing the officers to swerve in order to avoid hitting that particular vehicle. That's when an occupant inside of the BMW began to take shots and shoot at the officer, striking the officer's vehicles multiple times. A pursuit was initiated at that time. The suspects traveled up Wisconsin Avenue from downtown Bethesda, at which point they made their way towards the 495 and the Beltway, where at the off-ramp of the Beltway they lost control and a collision occurred. Two suspects were taken into custody immediately, and a search by K-9 officers and with the assistance of the Prince George's County helicopter, we were able to locate the third suspect, who was also taken into custody without any incident. There were no shots fired by any of our officers, and none of our officers, fortunately, were injured as a result of the shots being fired at them. We arrested 3 subjects. Again, they're all juveniles. They're all 16 years of age, and all 3 have been identified from the District of Columbia. They're all being charged as adults with attempted murder, first-degree assault, and first-degree burglary. Through the course of this investigation, our officers have determined that these 3 are connected to other residential burglaries and found items of evidentiary value. This was a great job by all involved, and I want to give a special recognition to the Second District Special Assignment Team for their tenacious work in identifying and being in the area in a very quick and responsive way, and also putting themselves in harm's way by literally having these suspects take a shot at them with a handgun and potentially causing them to lose their lives. I also want to thank Prince George's County, Chief Aziz, and his officers, particularly the helicopter unit, for their assistance. And I can only say I'm so very proud of our officers for both of these investigations. This really shows the commitment and dedication of Montgomery County officers who really work hard to help to make our communities safe and provide self-sacrifice in their own regards, putting their lives in front of danger in order to make sure our community is safe. What happened early this morning clearly could have ended tragically. And the fact that these 3 suspects are all juveniles is simply disturbing. So I'll turn it over to Mr. McCarthy at this time.
I first want to just comment, and I've said this privately to the chief on a prior occasion about the information related to the Crystal Rock case, but again, particularly in light of what happened last night, I think that the men and women that live in this community should be very grateful to the outstanding people that are members of the police department in this community, because I think both of these cases, whether it's last night's case or whether it's what happened on Crystal Rock, is truly a reflection of the magnificent work of the men and women that are police department in Montgomery County. I will say, relative to the case last night, the offenders that were arrested are 16 years old. As you probably are aware from prior times when we've spoken about this together, I am prohibited from speaking about cases involving individuals under the age of 18 who are charged as adults until it is determined by the court that they will be handled permanently in the adult court. So may I say they are charged as adults because under law in Maryland, if you're over a certain age, i.e. 16, and you're charged with first-degree murder, the statute says you shall be charged as an adult. So that's how it, I can comment on the law, I can't comment on the facts of the case. I would defer to the chief on that. Relative, going back to Crystal Rock, I would indicate I think this is really a wonderful step forward for that particular community. I know the chief is aware, the police department is aware, my office is aware of public concerns about a variety of activities, particularly involving young people, guns, and drugs in that community. This case was worked on by the police for weeks, and there were some other adjacent violent activities that are still under investigation that may be related to this, but that's subject to where we go during the course of this investigation. But we worked together on this. The 7 individuals arrested on the night that the raid occurred at 10:30 in the evening were between the ages of 24 and 18. They were all adults, some from Germantown, some from Clarksburg, some from Rockville. 6 of the 7 were validated as being affiliated with or members of the gang. Each one of the 7 was a prohibited person. Now, when I say prohibited person, what do I mean by that? Well, either because they had been previously convicted of a crime of violence, they were ineligible to possess a firearm in Maryland, or alternatively, because you cannot possess a firearm under the age of 21, they were prohibited by age. No one who was arrested on this particular occasion should have been able to have a gun in their possession. The chief summarized the guns that were taken. The reality is 2 of these had been made into functioning machine guns with extended magazines. The preliminary hearing for this matter, the bond review was held last week before Judge John Moffitt of the District Court. Ironically, Judge Moffitt is the same judge who signed the search warrant in this case. The preliminary hearing matter for all of the 7 defendants is July the 22nd, and their action must be taken by the grand jury against each of them before that date, and that will in fact take place. They are all held without bond. None of the individuals that were arrested at Crystal Rock are free in the community at this point in time, and the investigation, I know from talking to the chief, is ongoing. The up-county focus has been for months on guns, drugs, youth, particularly ghost guns. This case had all of those aspects. There was yet another ghost gun seized along with the other guns in that case in Crystal Rock. I would also indicate that in this matter, and again, this is a shout out to the men and women of the police department. This was a no-knock search warrant. Many of you probably now are aware that under Maryland there's really there are very strict guidelines under which and when you can conduct a no-knock search warrant. We have not done them very often since the new law went into effect. But I will tell you, I read the search warrant. I am obligated by statute to review every no-knock search warrant. My only concern in signing this one is to make sure the men and women who executed it were safe, when they executed it, because I found the facts frightening, quite candidly. I want to thank them for the superb way in which they executed the search warrant. This was an apartment that these houses are all close proximity to each other. They're adjacent to a playground where children play. The fact that they were able to do this safely with no harm to anyone, to any of the neighbors, is a reflection, again, of the professionalism of this police department. I'm proud of the collaboration that was reflected by Tessie Casafranco, who heads my gang unit, who worked on this matter with the police for many, many days before this happened. And I think it's, again, a superb illustration of how we work together to make this community safer, and I want to congratulate the chief.
Thank you, John. So at this time, I'll take any questions that you all may have.
In the shooting this morning, whereabouts on the cruiser did the bullet or bullets hit? And was it one cruiser that sustained a bullet or multiple?
Yeah, Kevin, it was one cruiser that actually sustained bullet holes. To my knowledge, it was 2 bullet holes that entered the vehicle. One of them actually entered into the passenger driver's compartment and actually struck the headrest of the passenger seat. So it showed you how close in proximity that it came to actually striking the actual officer.
And how many home burglaries are these 16-year-olds connected to? I know you said they were actively breaking into a home, but you connected them to multiple others. How many?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that we've been, over the past few weeks, know that we've had a trend, and I think there have been more than 5. So we know that we kept having these late-night burglaries. We had some information as to a possible suspect vehicle, i.e. we did know about a BMW, so that gave us a good clue when the surveillance actually saw that vehicle leaving at a high rate of speed from the actual call that they received. So gave us a clue that was probably more likely involved. And then we later discovered that vehicle was actually stolen. I believe it's stolen from Arlington. So again, it just shows you how regionally these crimes are being committed in our area and how we have to really be vigilant no matter where the suspects may be coming from.
Just 2 other questions. Did anyone, how did the first call come in or notification that there was an active burglary in progress? Did someone home? Did a neighbor see?
I believe that someone was home that knew that someone was trying to break into their home. Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, we also have confirmation that they actually broke into a neighbor's home of that particular residence, and we were able to recover property as a result of being stolen out of that neighbor's home also. Home, I should say.
16 years old, it's just hard to wrap your mind around this, and in another way, it's kind of becoming the norm that we're hearing these terribly violent crimes and terribly young people committing them. What do you attribute it to? Is it still COVID, or is there more going on here?
No, I don't want to. Again, there are many partners across the county, for example, that we're having a discussion about this, and I think it even. Someone mentioned in a council meeting the other day, it seems to be that we need to have a more regional approach because we know that younger people are getting involved in this. And so we've taken a proactive approach to look at it from a youth intervention. I will suggest from my perspective that I don't think it's COVID. I think it's, again, there is a wide variety of reasons that we've seen about individuals being involved in criminal activity, particularly with the availability of guns on our streets and young people getting their hands on guns. We've heard way too often that young people are really kind of resigning themselves to finding guns and to be in possession of guns because they think it is a safety mechanism for them because they believe others have them. So there's a lot of reasons, and I think we really have to dig deeper into root cause of why young people are doing what they're doing, and we're really working hard to get there.
How many of these 7 arrested are Hispanic?
The ones from last night? The earliest, or the one in Germantown? In Germantown, I don't think any of them are, one maybe. Yes, one maybe a Latino in Germantown case, but last night, all three subjects last night were Latino. Okay. Yes.
How many minutes did the police pursuit last in Bethesda?
Well, if you could probably imagine being downtown Bethesda, probably around Bradley and Wisconsin Avenue, and traveling north up to the Beltway, didn't last long. Most of the times those pursuits are probably less than 2 minutes. So from the time that they tried to speed away and get up 355, up until the time they crashed, which is just probably a couple of minutes at best.
And what are the genders of the 3 suspects?
All males.
Also, one more question on the Crystal Rock situation. Is it known exactly how large this gang is and exactly where they operate? Is it all in the Germantown area, or is it a larger area?
Well, for the most part, based upon this operation, they were mostly operating in Germantown, but we know that these individuals move across the county. Again, as Mr. McCarthy noted, you have some individuals that, some are from Rockville, some are from Clarksburg, so there are no boundaries per se. When you say operate, that means they move from one area to another. But generally, if we want to kind of focus on what was sort of the center of their operation, it clearly was Germantown. Yes, ma'am.
Just to confirm, the 7 in Germantown as well were also all men?
Yes, yes.
Are you able to quantify with the drug arrest the extent to that drug operation and what kind of dent this is going to put in this ongoing fentanyl, the counterfeit?
Yes. Well, one thing we have to realize is that this is a problem all throughout the county, and this reminded me of, and I worked many years myself during a crack epidemic, but this reminded me almost of an open air drug market where you had an apartment that basically sort of was, based upon what I'm hearing from the investigators, that was a lot of foot traffic going in and out of an apartment in order to buy fentanyl, which means there was plenty of product that was available, and that it was an easy location to go in and out. So from that perspective, it may make it harder for individuals to maybe purchase now, because now they have to find another way. But it still doesn't satisfy me to think that it's going to be totally eliminated from that perspective, because individuals who are addicted or who want to purchase these types of drugs will find another way to actually purchase them. Okay. All right. So thank you all, and thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah.
We will be sending out a news release within probably the next 30 minutes detailing the incidents from overnight in Bethesda.